Thank you very much, and good morning, good afternoon to everybody. Thanks for joining us to this CCUS in Spain, led by IGME, Geological Survey of Spain, and PETECO, Spanish CO2 technological platform of Spain. We have here, I will go through the agenda. Yeah, I think that we can go ahead 2 minutes after. So this is our agenda. I will provide an overview of the CCS in Spain. I'm Paula Canteli from the Geological Survey of Spain. Then Tarraco CO2 storage project from Francisco Pángaro, Repsol. Hubs and transport network for CCS development in Spain by María Jesús Martín, Enagás. And CCS social acceptance in Spain by Christian Oltra, CIEMAT-CISOT. We expect to have around 20 minutes at the end for Q&A session. And we will use the chat, so you can write your questions on the chat, and we will go through this at the end of the presentations. So just a couple of slides presenting what is the Instituto Geológico y Minero de España. That is the National Center of Earth and Science. We have more than 175 years. The headquarters is in Madrid. We have also 11 regional offices around Spain, including Canarias Island, Baleares Island. We are part of the Spanish National Research Council and responsible for geology, hydrology, mineral resources, and so on. We have key functions very clear, and I would like to underline this creation of knowledge infrastructure and the technology assistance and advice to public bodies, industry, and society in general. And also to mention that we have one of our key line is the CO2 storage, participating in several projects. We have created and keep public and online national atlas of the CO2 storage potential, and by law, when a permit for exploitation of a CO2 storage site, we need to provide our view about this. And the Spanish CO2 technological platform is a public-private network led by industry. The mission is to promote the development and deployment of the CCUS, the whole channel technologies in Spain. Is around 75 members, including all of these different areas. And those are the 4 key actions where it's involved in them. A lot of logos with all the industry that is involved. And you see that Repsol, Enagás, CIEMAT, and CSIC, we are also part of the Spanish platform. And a lot of universities and so on. So, starting the overview of the CCS in Spain that I will show you, just keep ideas of the Spanish CO2 storage potential. It was a study many years ago, focused on the saline aquifers, and the information came mainly from the 70s, 80s hydrocarbon exploration in Spain, in this area, and was identified around 100 potential traps in saline aquifers and in the onshore. All of this is in a database that is public. The offshore was also a study after this phase, but was not published. And in the last years, 2 key projects, CSTOR and Algemar, have been reviewing all the information that was provided for the offshore, identifying potential in the offshore too. All of this we have published right 2 weeks ago in the GCU Atlas, and we have reduced the traps to 75, and we have included also 10 depleted hydrocarbon reservoirs, just because they are in the area and we have information. So now we have included the onshore and the offshore. Again, everything is based on public information, and applying the storage readiness level as you see, that is something new in the UCU Atlas. In our case, most of the identified traps are the level 2, that is really immature, except Tarraco, that Francisco will present later. We have, for this SRL2, estimated theoretical capacity around 11 gigatons. What we have right now, thinking in the CO2 storage, we have Pontomin, it's a research pilot in Burgos. They have been injecting few tons in around 2015, 2016, and right now it's just in standby, ready for injecting if it's decided, but right now just in standby. The yellow one is the pilot strategy project that we are all involved. Also, Enagás is an industrial advisor, and we study in detail and structure in the area of Zaragoza. And Tarraco 2, again, Francisco, we will explain you more about that later. And we have also another exploration permit under the binary law in the area of Murcia. I asked yesterday to them if they have something new, and they say that right now it's exactly the same that is there. That's waiting for more news. And thinking in capture and transport, Maria Jesus will explain you later about these 3 areas with other 3 key projects. My last slide is this thinking about the legal frame, just trying to underline what is different in Spain comparing with other countries. For example, in our case, we don't have restriction for onshore-offshore. Both areas are valid, and we do not promote license round. Anyone that thinks that have potential in an area can ask for exploration permit. The permit in general is very complex. That is something very similar in many countries. We have many different regulations to apply when they are regulations, because we don't have in all of cases. And just to a detail to include more complexity about this, the exploration and onshore permits is under the regional governments. However, the exploitation and offshore is under national government, so a little complicated. To be improved, well, we have good things and we have things to be really needed to do something right now is the regulation development, because we have the national law, however, not the regulation development of this law. Very complex legal frame. We don't have specific economic incentives or enough for the industry or for the research to move ahead with our knowledge, and we need more clear political support. That is from me. And Francisco, he will share right now his presentation. I will stop sharing. Francisco, you can share, and in the meantime, I will read your introduction. He is PhD in geological science from the University of Buenos Aires, Argentina. He began his career in the hydrocarbon industry in 1996 as an exploration geologist. He held positions at Repsol YPF Argentina, Petrobras, and currently at Repsol. From 2021, in line with Repsol's adoption of decarbonization goal, he moved to serve as senior manager of CO2 storage projects, focusing on Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paula. Okay, and thank you to everyone for being there. I don't see you, but I understand there's a lot of people. So I will be sharing today Repsol's Tarraco project. Tarraco is the Roman name for the city of Tarragona in the Mediterranean coast, south of Barcelona. Okay, this is not. I'm trying to pass the slides here, but that's okay. I understand. One second. Okay, that's it. So, as Paula mentioned, in 2021, Repsol, in the frame of its transition to becoming a net zero emissions company by 2050, put together a dedicated group within the upstream structure, making use of the knowledge in oil and gas, and to use the abilities of the workforce for subsurface exploration, to identify potential projects for carbon storage in the region. So we started in Spain, of course. That's where we mostly operate, especially the downstream. And our first task was realizing the Spanish industrial emissions, which reached 64 million tons per year. That was 2023, out of the 230 million tons per year of CO2 emitted annually in Spain. A more detailed analysis and filtering out very small emitters and focusing only on hard-to-abate emissions. That means ruling out combined cycles, refining, etc. We ended up with this heat map that shows the distribution of these emission sources. The first one that to strike our attention is the area of Tarragona and Barcelona, where we could identify a series of hard-to-abate emitters, mostly cement and chemical industry. Other areas also caught our attention and were the matter of studies, but the project I'm going to talk about today is Tarraco here in the Mediterranean. So Repsol's vision for CCS is to provide a storage as a service for these hard-to-abate emitters. And in the particular area of the Tarraco project, which is located offshore south of Tarragona, we were able to identify more than 6 million tons per year of potential emissions to be serviced by our project. As I earlier mentioned, our focus is hard to abate, and that is our motto, because we are of course aligned with Spanish policy, which is very focused on energy efficiency and CCS as the last resource to support these hard to abate industries. The project evolved through 2.5 years now, and Repsol applied for an investigation permit in this legal framework that Paula described. And we applied for the European Innovation Funds in the 2023 call, and we were selected for grant access. What is the Tarraco project? The Tarraco project has the objective of permanently storing CO2 at 1.6 kilometers deep saline aquifer, which is 50 kilometers offshore from Tarragona. Our commercial base case, as of today, considers 30 years operation at a rate of 2 million tons per year of CO2, which could grow higher depending on the result of a validation well that we intend to drill. And just a bit of history. Repsol operated in the region for 3 decades now. There is a series of oil and gas, oil fields in some carbonates right on top of the basement. And there is this Castellón sandstone aquifer that is a beautiful sandstone, but it was devoid of any hydrocarbons. So it was always drilled as fast as possible, as we do in the oil industry. And there is not a test of these sandstones. We have a lot of logs, we have samples, we are able to realize its permeability, porosity, everything, but there's not a production test. And what we need to do to further fine-tune our project is to perform an injectivity test. So the project itself encompasses everything from a delivery point onshore. Repsol has facilities onshore Tarragona, so we have Repsol's own jetty, the port, to export the CO2, and then the construction of a 50 to 60 kilometers long pipeline and submarine facilities for injection. I know some geology because I'm a geologist. Offshore Spain is not the North Sea, so we don't have huge sedimentary basins, dumping a lot of sediments into the Mediterranean. But the Ebro Delta is something of its own. So it's a very nice looking Miocene delta, very focused. Wait, I don't know if you're okay. So very focused delivery point of sand that led to the evolution of a 2 kilometers thick clastic succession that was affected by the Mediterranean, by the Messinian Mediterranean salinity crisis that led to an unconformity that isolated our reservoir down here. So this is what I'm talking about here. You have the Miocene section. I don't know if you're following my cursor. Maybe Paula, you can confirm. We have the Miocene section and the Castellón sandstone, which is our aquifer, that sits right in the middle of it, capped by an unconformity and sealed by a very efficient, very good quality sealing unit. And this is in
we can see your mouse, Francisco. I can see
okay, great, thank you. So this is what the Tarraco project looks like. Here we have, down here we have the basement. On top of it are the oil producing reservoirs offset from our location. And this is the Castellón sandstone aquifer, a very thick 500 meters, 20% net to gross reservoir section with good quality sandstones that we were able to prove with some samples that we have, and sealed by these Ebro shales. So the situation is ideal. It's a saline aquifer. To the north and to the east, it is open. To the west, sorry, to the north and to the west, it's open, so pressure dissipation is guaranteed. And the continuity of the sandstones is remarkable. More in detail, this is what it looks like. We have 3D seismic, and which we use to characterize the reservoir. This is a slice of one of our multiple reservoir levels on which we run a spectral decomposition. And what you can see, and you have to believe in the non-geoscientists, you have to believe me, these stripes, yellowish stripes you are seeing here are fluvial channels that were feeding into a delta and shore phase system. This is like what you see on the beach. This is our objective reservoir, and it's very extended. Here on the right-hand side, you have the actual depositional model. So what do? We characterize this 500 meters thick reservoir interval. We populate it with the phases and the porosities that we extract from the wells and from extrapolating this data. And we run our dynamic models to establish what is the injectivity and what is the capacity of our project. Our modelings, we have several runs, of course, show that we have enough capacity for our commercial case. That's without doubt. And we are expecting to increase that capacity beyond the 2 million tons per year. This modeling that I'm showing here shows the multi-layer nature of our reservoir and the location of the CO2 plume after 30 years of injection, and additional 30 years of modeling to prove the stabilization of the plume. These kind of reservoir units that are multi-story are very favorable for immobilizing, for helping the immobilization of the CO2 plume, so that we are sure that it's not going to migrate to any unwanted locality. As per the development concept here, we are considering, onshore facilities for receiving the CO2, whether in gas or dense phase, then compression and boosting and transportation through a 60 kilometers long submarine pipeline, and 2 injectors plus 1 backup and monitoring well. And all the facilities we are considering to be subsea, so no visible platforms. And the scope of the project, as I said, is this. We have contact with a lot of emitters from the region, mostly cement producers and chemical industry. They are to be services by transport operator, and some emitters are local, so they are very close to our delivery point. And our scope, and that this is what was presented to the innovation funds, is a very short land transport, pumping, and then the storage. This in orange is what was presented to the innovation funds the funding. And last, regarding monitoring, measuring and verification, in our investigation permit we included a lot of baseline studies. One of the most remarkable pieces of innovation we want to deploy here, and this was also presented to innovation funds, is a 10 plus long kilometers fiber optic that is going to be deployed in the sea bottom alongside with 3 sea bottom seismographers to monitor seismicity. Induced seismicity is a matter of concern in Spain especially. So this array, according to our modeling, will allow us to reduce the uncertainty of any seismic event that might be related to our storage to levels that are minimal. So we will be perfectly aware of the source of whatever event that happens during the operation. Last, to conclude, what is Tarraco? So the Tarraco permit, we are waiting for granting of the permit to commence with our works. Is proposed as a service to hard-to-abate emissions in northeastern Spain that will allow reducing emissions. We are going to take care of 1/3 of the local emissions, hard-to-abate emissions. We will support to preserve the hard-to-abate industry by increasing its competitiveness. And it will also lead to the creation of an ecosystem that will support carbon usage. This is especially considering that we have a refinery in Tarragona that will be in the future in the need for raw materials for synthetic fuel production. The project is supported by the European Innovation Funds and was granted the STEP stamp recently, the Strategic Technologies for Europe platform. And that's it. I don't want to use more time because I'm a bit beyond. And that's it from my side.
Thank you very much, Francisco. You have yet some questions for later in the Q&A session.
Okay.
So we move on to Maria Jesus' presentation. Could you please share your screen and I will read your CV at the same time?
Yes.
Maria Jesus is mining engineer from the Universidad Politécnica de Madrid, specialized in energy and fuels. She brings over 20 years of experience in the energy sector and is currently head of business development at Enagás. In her role, she leads initiatives focused on new molecules for the energy transition, including CO2 management and the development of the logistic chain for ammonia, among others. Thank you, Maria Jesus.
Okay, thank you, Paula, for the introduction, and many thanks to the organizer for the opportunity to be here today and to share what Enagás is doing to contribute to the development of CCUS projects in Spain. Okay, let me start by briefly introducing Enagás. Enagás is the Spanish TSO, traditionally focused on investing in natural gas and LNG infrastructures. In Spain, we operate more than 11,000 kilometers of pipelines. We own 6 LNG terminals located in different ports and manage 3 underground natural gas storages. Enagás maintains a solid international presence through key energy infrastructure where we participate, for example, in the Transadriatic pipeline connecting the Caspian region with Europe. We hold a stake in DESFA, the Greek TSO, and we are involved in the development of an LNG terminal in Germany. Outside Europe, we operate in Peru and in Mexico, and we are focused on a strategy to rotate assets to prioritize investment in Europe and to actively support the European energy transition. Enagás is now fully committed to the development of hydrogen infrastructures in Spain, and like other TSO, we are also actively working in CCU infrastructures. Let me continue. Looking at the CCUS in Europe, we see many projects progressing. In the latest PCI list published in November 2023, 14 CCS infrastructure projects were included across Europe. However, Spain was not represented with any CCS infrastructure developments. And then as a TSO, Enagás began to explore how we could support Spanish industry in achieving their decarbonization goals and remain competitive with peers in other European countries. At the end, our goal is to ensure that Spain is firmly placed on the map of the CCS development with concrete initiatives and projects that contribute to advancing the European decarbonization. Enagás believes that with our 15 years of experience as independent operator focused on developing an open access pipeline infrastructure, we can help in this value chain. This infrastructure will serve hard-to-abate sectors that are developing capture projects, aiming to find efficiencies and reduce the overall cost of the value chain, which is critical for these kind of projects. We are mainly focused on CO2 pipelines that connect with either underground storage sites or LNG terminals where CO2 can be liquefied using the wasting core from the LNG operation. And additionally, in case that we need to connect with underground storages outside Spain, Enagás owns a 100% company, which is Scale Green Energy, a company that will manage CO2 shipping solution. This will serve as a virtual pipeline to link emitters with underground storage or with potential users. In 2023, Enagás launched a call for interest, mainly focused on hydrogen, but we also included CO2 questions. The results showed a strong interest, and at least 37 companies, mainly focused in the cement sector, were planning capture projects, and around 50 expressed their need for infrastructure to connect with underground storage or potential user. In total, around 10.4 million tons per year of CO2 were identified, along with several key industrial hubs. Following this, we carry out a deeper market analysis focusing on the cement and lime sector, which represent around the 95% of the answer received from the call for interest. We identify about 14 million tons per year of potential capture CO2 from the mineral sector alone. And when including other hard-to-abate sector in Spain, the potential that we identify increases to around 45 million tons per year, including biogenic emitters. To design the infrastructures in these hubs, Enagás is focused on maximizing efficiencies in terms of both cost and timelines. For this reason, we are using our synergies, like the rate of way, or more than 11,000 kilometers of natural gas pipeline, or the future hydrogen network that Enagás is developed. For CO2, we have designed around 1,500 kilometers of CO2 pipelines associated with the 6 hubs. We are in the process of design all of this. These pipelines will connect industrial sites with underground storages or with LNG terminals, where CO2 can be liquefied and transported by ship, helping to reduce the overall cost of the value chain, as said before. Here, for us, the critical thing is that we are developing collaborative projects with emitters, storage owners, which is essential, no, for capital-intensive infrastructure, with FIDs, with shared dependencies. And our goal is to optimize the full value chains, costs, timelines, and be coordinated between all the stakeholders in order to go ahead with these initiatives. Talking about the Enagás main projects, and I'm showing the public information. We are working in additional projects and in different hubs, but I would like to highlight the public information. Enagás is working on the design of 6 CO2 hubs. Among them, the North and Northwest hub were submitted as part of the latest PCI list, which is now under evaluation. These projects are focused on export infrastructure, since underground storage availability in these regions is still being resolved. In the Mediterranean, we are involved in two key projects. One is the CO2 Nectar, developed jointly with Holcim and Sagaz, aimed to connect Holcim facilities to the Sagaz LNG terminal, where Enagás owns a 72.5% of stake. The CO2 will be liquefied and shipped to the final underground storage in Spain or other European location. The project will handle around 600,000 tons of CO2 per year, which will be put into operation between 2031 and 2032. The next project is the Mossusol Net CO2 project. This project is being developed in collaboration with Molins, connects the Molins facility to the Tarraco storage site. This project expects to transport over 1 million tons of CO2 per year and enter into operation around 2031-2032. As commented before, we are trying to develop collaborative projects, and then in that sense, we are also signing collaboration agreements with third parties to ensure future capture projects are integrated in this infrastructure design. So far, Enagás has signed collaboration agreements with over 70% of the companies in the mineral sector. To conclude, I would like to emphasize our commitment to developing efficient infrastructures within the CO2 value chain, which is critical for the development of these projects. And one of the main contributions of Enagás is our patented technology to liquefy CO2 using the cold energy from the LNG, which allows saving in terms of CAPEX and OPEX for the reduction of electricity cost. In the illustration on the left shows our patent cold system, which we are currently using in a project in Barcelona to provide cold services to a client using the cold from the LNG. By applying this technology and with our operational synergies, Enagás aims to contribute to decarbonization as an independent operator, offering open access infrastructure and developing multi-molecule terminals. As an example, you can see in the illustration on the right, which shows our future multi-molecule terminal, which combine LNG, CO2, and other molecules that will help with the energy transition in the future. To conclude, the proposal of Enagás in participating in this project is to help the development of the energy transition in the most efficient way possible, supporting the Spanish industries to fulfill their decarbonization goals, while also remain competitive in the European market, which is critical for the country. I think that is my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you, Paula.
Thank you, Maria Jesús. And our last speaker, Christian Oltra, would you please share your screen? Is a research at the Department of Environment of CIEMAT. His work focuses on the social dimension of energy technologies with a specialization in the public acceptance and stakeholder engagement for carbon capture and storage. For over a decade, he has participated in numerous European and Spanish projects aimed to understanding and integrating community perspective into the CCS development.
Thank you, Paula. Well, thank you for the invitation. So today I will be sharing some insights from our social research on the public acceptance of CCS in general, and also specifically in Spain, the Spanish context. So the first idea is that in the coming future in Spain and also around Europe, projects will move from concept to reality, and they will interact directly with local communities and local environments. So here is when social acceptance and stakeholder engagement becomes more critical. We know from experience that strong local opposition can lead to delays or even project failures, as we saw in the past. But on the contrary, projects that are socially aware and well integrated have the potential to move from tolerance, from rejection to even acceptance, approval, and even community support. So the key here is how do we manage this integration, right? Which requires many things, but from the start to be open and transparent, to inform communities, to respond and integrate their concerns and needs and values. When we talk about public or social acceptance, or more generally about public attitudes towards CCS, we need to distinguish between the socio-political acceptance and the community acceptance. Mainly, for today, I will focus on these two dimensions. Socio-political acceptance is the acceptance by policymakers, by the public, the general public, but national stakeholders. The key thing here is if CCS is considered as a necessary part of the energy transition or the climate change mitigation strategy. But the second level is the community acceptance. And here, the key thing is that there's a CCUS infrastructure close to a local community. And here we are focusing on the acceptance by the residents and the local stakeholders. The community directly affected by the CCS project, by the CO2 storage. We know that at the community level, but also at the national level, the attitude, the acceptance of CCS technology, CO2 storage projects is not completely random. There are several factors that influence how CCS is accepted or rejected by local communities. And we have four very important things that our previous research has shown that are critical in public acceptance. First is the trust in the promoters. Second is the perceived benefits and risks and how they are distributed of the project. The emotions linked to the project, and then how the procedure of implementation is perceived as legitimate or not, the procedure legitimacy. Then we have other things that are out of control sometimes, which is the socio-political context, the prior values of the residents of the local community, and other kind of stakeholder actions that, of course, can influence the acceptance of the project through the life cycle. But these four factors here are usually critical, and this is what is also showing our research in Spain and around Europe. Okay, let's focus on the public perceptions of what we know about public acceptance of CCS in Spain. So we have been monitoring or conducting studies on the public acceptance of CCS in the last years. Some key dates were 2007 with the first studies, the Ontomin site also, and more recently the project that Paula was mentioning, pilot strategy, and we have been conducting studies on the social acceptance of a potential CO2 storage site in Lopin. I will briefly say something about this also. Okay, so our research from these years consistently have shown that the level of public awareness in Spain around CCS is very low. In 2015, we found that around 14% of the public, the general public, had heard about CCS technology. And interestingly, the situation in 2023 was not very different. We can say that around 6% of the population feels that they know what CCS is. So there's still a really low level of awareness about CCS. In our studies, when we provide neutral to positive information to respondents, what we found is that despite the low levels of awareness, usually the majority of the public has a positive attitude toward CCS. So at the Spanish level, we found in 2015 that more or less 50% of the respondents were favorable to CCS, 26 were neutral, and we found 25% of opposition or initial rejection to the CCS as a technology to combat climate change. The levels are really similar in 2023. Again, we find that a majority find CCS acceptable, but there's also a significant portion of the public that remains neutral or ambivalent, and finally, a minority that find it's unacceptable, right? It's also interesting to think that opponents and supporters to CCS in our studies, usually they have a very different perceptual world around CCS. So where supporters find the technology really innovative, necessary to protect the environment, beneficial for the economy, they have very low level of risk perception and fear and high levels of interest. Opponents, on the other hand, are usually based on a high level of fear, risk perception, also the perception that the technology tampers with nature, and finally, they usually have lower levels in the industry as compared to supporters. So just to summarize this part, we find that there is no overwhelming consensus. Opinions are forming in Spain, but interestingly, there's some stability over time. And for these years, we find that the public attitudes towards CCS are generally positive to neutral. And interestingly, they are not polarized. They are not strongly polarized. So there's no strong opposition to CCS in Spain. But of course, this is dynamic, right? As projects will develop. Okay, so now I want to focus. I think I have time enough. Yeah, on the community level, right? Because as I was saying, this is the most critical part of the social acceptance of CCS. We have been conducting research on the pilot strategy project in this site in north of Spain, the Lopin site in the Ebro Basin. And well, interestingly, in the pilot project, we have been considering this as a dynamic living laboratory, right? Where we can study how the attitude towards CCS is formed, how public engagement works, and how the CCS project could in the future integrate with the local communities, as in this particular situation in the north of Spain. Lopin site is very close to several towns, mainly agricultural, livestock, and some mining activities. Here we conducted some social research based on different steps, and well, some key results. So you have a view of community acceptance in a particular case. For instance, our data from the survey showed us. Again, the majority of the public is somehow in favor of the project of a CO2 storage site. The level is a bit lower than for the general population, which is usually the difference between a general idea and a siting situation. We have significant levels of neutrality and ambivalence, and we can say that almost 1 in 3 is somehow reluctant or against a CO2 storage, right? But what's behind this situation? Well, here is where we go to more specific perception and beliefs about CCS. In the project, we found the importance of differentiating between the global and local benefits for the local population. Of course, the local benefits are somehow more important than the general environmental or strategic benefits. Not all the stakeholders, not all the public is able to understand the benefits of conducting this kind of CO2 storage sites, projects. And usually the communities are more focused on the local and the tangible, right? Which is issues as job creation, potential compensations, reflecting somehow their values and immediate concerns of the community. We have the perceived risk that we said is another important dimension to consider. And of course, we have sometimes a negativity bias. The negative impacts, the potential negative impacts are sometimes somehow more important. The mental models of the local communities might be different than the mental models of the experts, right? How, for instance, they visualize what is an underground storage. There are issues of equity and fairness about the impact. And also, we also always find that trust is here crucial. Trust somehow mediates all the perceptions around the risk from CCS. Usually the public is concerned about environmental and safety impacts, but also, of course, about economic and social risks, other kind of risks that sometimes we don't consider in the projects. Okay, finally, yeah, we have the conditions for acceptance. Through our engagement, the community itself usually articulates conditions for ideal support for these CCS projects. And as you can see, it has to do with the benefits, with the safety, and with the feeling of being informed, transparent. So that's the main 4 dimensions that usually appear in this kind of research. Okay, so to conclude, the journey from concept to reality will be partially influenced by how we navigate the social dimensions. It's important to differentiate between socio-political acceptance, the national debate, policy landscape, and the community acceptance. Public perception, of course, are not static. They can change with time, even during the life cycle of the project, due to stakeholder actions, media framing, project dynamics. And this, I think, requires a proactive and non-reactive approach from all the partners involved. And we know, finally, that's my end idea for the presentation, that there are some principles that we have to take into consideration for the future acceptance of CCS, which is basically around trust, engagement, enhancement of the local benefits, shared narrative, shared positive narrative, and the key idea here, which is the local embeddedness of the project, the real, ideally, the real integration of the projects with the local communities. And I think that's it. Sorry if it was too much time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christian. We have now almost 50 minutes for questions, and I will go through the questions, the Q&As and A's here. Reading. Interesting that Madrid is not the major CO2 emitter out of the large cities. In Spain, the main industry is not around Madrid. Madrid is not really high industrialized place. I think that the map presented by Maria Jesús showing the key areas that Enagás is working around, they show very well the key industrial areas in Spain.
And additionally, Paula, I think the emission of CO2 could be totally different. We are mainly focused in industrial emissions, with the main focus in cement and lime sector and the hard-to-abate sector, not other kind of emitters like cars or other kind of emitters.
Mm-hmm. Yes, true. Thank you. Now there are few questions for Tarraco. So I will try to summarize. I don't know if you are reading because the first one is so complete that perhaps you answer all the questions answering this.
Yes, I can take care of it if you want. So
yes.
Regarding the step to de-risk the project is the injectivity testing. It's a very known reservoir. We have data. We have everything, but a test was not performed. So before engaging in the construction of the whole infrastructure and telling the emitters to build their capture plants for hundreds of millions, we need a validation of the testing of the injection capacity. And then what are the bottlenecks? Bottlenecks, well, here locally, it could be the permitting for the activities. It is a new activity in Spain, and that poses a challenge to administration for sure, to grant the permits for the activity, and also a lot of communication work is needed towards the community. And I cannot provide the prices.
You cannot provide the cost.
Yes, and about the emissions to be accepted, the Spanish law is very clear. The non-restrictive access, provided that there is a space. So if we have a project for 4 million tons and we have 2 million tons in Tarragona, the rest can come from wherever. We are agnostic on that regard. I think the next one is for you, Paula.
Now, I'm thinking that could be for Maria Jesus, a commercial question. What is the percentage of storage cost that you are considering for the offshore cases? I can answer for the onshore based on our work that we have done. On the onshore for the storage, it was around 20, 30%, no more, 20. And we are moving around 100, 120 euros per ton in the onshore and in general. I mean, big number. It's a study that we have done in IGME and it's public also. But for the offshore, I don't know.
Well, I prefer not discussing that, but yeah, the larger the better. So there is a great sensitivity to the size of the project. So yes, let's leave it there, please.
Okay, no, I'm just asking. If you cannot, you cannot. The major challenge in terms of transportation that you are facing while executing this project, I think that is also for you, pricing. Francisco, from the MMB slide, what are the plans for conforming monitoring of the plume? Seismic?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't have the time to go deeply into that, but yes, we are aware that the directive states that the operator is to be fully aware of the whereabouts of the CO2 plume at all times. So we have, what we did is we have 3D seismic in the region, we have logs. So we model the response of the reservoir to different saturations of CO2, and it's perfectly feasible to monitor the plume extension through seismic. What we do not want to do is to shoot seismic every now and then. Sleipner did that because it was a research project in a way, but today there are far better alternatives like single source, single receiver seismic or high resolution seismic if the depth of your reservoir allows to. So yes, we are planning to deploy ways of monitoring the plume location and extension.
Okay, thank you. I will jump to the last one that is for Christian. How could CCS concerns in the public perception compare to public concerns around transport and intermediate storage of natural gas or LNG, so other types of?
Yeah, well, there's always the question about this, the different views on transport, capture, transport, and storage. I think there are some studies on this. We don't have data for our study on the difference, but of course, yeah, there's a lot of work on the general oil and gas, right, transport, and how it affects communities and how this is communicated. For CCS, I mean, we think the critical thing is on the storage, but of course, yeah, it depends on the type of project and so on. So I haven't seen the comparison, right, between gas transport and CO2 transport. I don't know.
Again.
So, Paula,
Yes?
there are two questions I would like to address that were made. One by Anne Carey Fur. So she was asking about the seismicity monitoring and if we are expecting trigger seismicity. So we designed for 0. That's what we designed for. But as per the guidance for the implementation of the directive and from the perspective of the need for communication, we do deploy a very sensitive monitoring arrangement to monitor for seismicity, because that is a social concern. We design for 0. We do not expect it to happen. If there is a risk, we will not deploy the project at all, because Repsol cannot tolerate such a reputational cost. And there was another question regarding, what was it? Oh, we can skip it. I forgot it. Sorry about that. That's just that one. I will look for the other one and I will answer it.
Okay, I will answer in the meantime a question that is for me, the percentage that is before the offshore is very small. It was around 300, 400 million tons compared with the 11 millions because we don't have too much data. We have not identified too many traps. Again, we are using only public information. Could be more information, but it's not public and we cannot use it. But in this case, we are using, and all the links to the maps for the national, for the European one are included in my slides, so you can go there. So the links for both are in the slides. So Francisco, sorry, I used your time.
Yes, it had slipped my mind, but here it is. So there's David asking about the size of the plume. So our modeling for 2 million tons per year, which is 1 million ton per well, shows that the plume after 30 years only extends like 6 kilometers in diameter around the wells. So it stabilizes very close from the wells. That is, if you look at Sleipner that has been injecting since 1996 in a high permeability reservoir, it doesn't extend beyond 7 or 8 kilometers. So it's very constrained. And this is related to a question that is there by Falo Cunha. He's asking about legacy wells. Yes, there are legacy wells north of in our project area. We do have them into consideration. We do not expect the plume to reach there. And we model the pressure front to be not high pressure so that it doesn't affect legacy wells. That is something to have in consideration when performing the risk assessment of the project. But the CO2 plume is very restricted, and we select the location to stay away from legacy wells. In terms of risk, you avoid, you mitigate, or you deal with it, or you face it. We prefer avoiding, of course, then we will mitigate if we cannot avoid. And if we cannot do any of those, then you have to bear the risk, if tolerable. Okay.
So we have 1 minute left. I will looking for one for Maria Jesus and another for Christian. And we pass to Mel because we are out of time. I don't know if you like this question, Maria Jesus, but it's there. How are the revenues obtained for Enagás projects? How it works in a regulated Enagás company?
Enagás now is prepared to do non-regulated business. We have a split. We create the Scale Green Energy, which is in charge of the non-regulated business. Then, until now, this is a non-regulated business. And then we are in the negotiation with the different emitters, trying to sign agreements and trying to organize this collaborative project that I explained during my presentation, which is critical to find the most efficient way in terms of the development of infrastructure design to take into account the different captures that are coming to the final infrastructure. Then we will agree take or pay contracts and trying to be as much efficient as possible, trying to reduce the cost in this part of the value chain. Until now, this is the situation. The future, who knows? In Europe, there are different working lines. In Spain is something that we'll see what happens.
Thank you very much. And last one for Christian, that it's not easy also, just to finish with some questions. It's a question that says that public acceptance looks not so bad, but administration and government seems not so happy. So could you recommend us something to move to this acceptance one to the administration and government? Because we are a bit late compared to the rest of Europe, let's say the sentence. So I'm sorry because it's not an easy question too.
No, I guess, yeah, it refers to the important thing that the socio-political acceptance is in part based on the policy-making position, right, at the national level. And this is, we know this is critical. And I don't know, I mean, of course, the strategy, the engagement communication, I guess, is different relative to the local communities, but somehow it's a kind of similar strategy, right? Try to present trust and positive narrative and around CCS at the national level compared to CCS at the local level. But somehow the factors are somehow the same. What are the real benefits, the value proposition of CCS? And this is, I guess, the only thing that the CCS community can do to persuade, let's say, national policymakers, right?
Okay, thank you very much.